Hello everybody, my name is Gorbz and welcome to this stream of consciousness. You may ask why I've got my channel currently up here. That's because this is the inspiration system, and several months ago there were a bunch of creators that I saw on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, who were starting looking through them and seeing what YouTube recommended for a new creation for them. Now, as you can see here, for me, it says, Minecraft Story Mode, should you buy it? Super Robot Wars roster, my ultimate dream picks. Comparing giant robot designs, aesthetics versus function. Warhammer 40k, female Imperial miniatures, lore versus tabletop. And the psychological impact of kaiju attacks. Now, what I would love to do with psychological impact of kaiju attacks, I am not a psychoanalyst. I would be, I don't freaking know. But it did have one of these that came up on female Space Marines for me when I looked. Now, this is all AI generated, so it just randomly throws out stuff for you. Like Minecraft Story Mode, I think I may have done 2 videos on that many years ago, and that's it. So I don't know why it's telling me to do it now. But I digress. The thing was, it was saying, oh yeah, you should do a video on female Space Marines. And if you, for example, if I click on here, I go develop idea, and it gives you something to start with, and it gives you some hooks down here. Like, for example, hidden within the grim darkness, far future, a story untold, perhaps undertold. We're diving deep into the representation of female characters of Warhammer 40k and covering stark differences between their powerful lore and often overlooked tabletop presence. What does this mean for the future of our favourite universe? It means nothing, to be honest with you. Female characters have always existed in Warhammer 40k ever since it was Rogue Trader, pretty much. But what it's pointing at, and if I can, you can look at thumbnails down here, for example. Show more, you can go and create, and blah 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 blah. That's the inspiration system anyway. And I bring this up now because recently the topic has resurfaced in certain groups, and I thought, hey, YouTube a few months ago wanted me to do a video on it, so why the heck not? And ironically, I'll just have to close this because I'll pick my green screen back up. There was, very shortly after I had that notion of might as well do it, Games Workshop released some new heads. There we go. Here's new heads, and some people have looked at them and said that yeah, some of these aren't exactly the standard masculine. Now, for example, we've got head here, and it's like head over here, and possibly this one, maybe bionic eye down here. They have been marketed as being Asian male. But Games Workshop have done Asian male before, and these, to me, it could just be that the way they're painted, like emphasizing potentially, for example, the one over here, emphasizing the lower lip a lot, which is generally a thing that is more often than not done with female faces. If they're going to have a prominent lipstick, for example, they'll have it on the lower lip. It could just simply be that the way they're painted, that it gives that impression. However, that is kind of beside the point at the moment, because the discussion, to my mind, is very much falling into 2 camps mostly. It's the, yes, we should have it for diversity and representation reasons, and no, we shouldn't have it for law reasons. To my mind, there are 2 main questions really that should be addressed with the idea of female space marines existing. And that is the could versus the should. Could female space marines exist in Warhammer 40k? And the answer to that is yes, they can exist. Simply because Games Workshop is the custodian of their lore. And should Games Workshop wish to change it, as they have done with numerous things in the past, whenever they've meant to produce, normally when they're making a new model, they'll break out the "it's always been there, it's been in the background, just nobody reported on it, it was misidentified, and that's why it never appeared before." You know, their usual line to go with, which they have called the unreliable narrator, but that's technically not true, because unreliable narrator requires someone to be narrating rather than an actual, factual document being produced outside of the lore. If it's something in universe, then yes, but they use it to say, oh yeah, we've changed the lore, basically. And they can do it. Should they wish to, they could easily just say, oh yeah, in one of his laboratories, Belisarius Cawl has been working diligently and has modified gene seed so that it can be applied to women. And there you go. Female space marines now exist. Female custodies, for example, they were never a thing until there was that single in-universe short story which had a female custodian on the bridge of a starship. Before that, they didn't exist, and the custodians were Brotherhood. Now they do. No matter who says what, they exist. They are there. And Games Workshop are not going to go, oh no, that was a mistake. I can't see them doing that. Similarly, they could just like what we've got here in the Warhammer community, they could simply just go, here's a miniature kit, and there are female heads on it, and it's for Space Marines, and there you go. They now exist in miniature form, and yeah, it's up to the individual hobbyist if they want to use them, but they could easily just go, because these are all digital, by the way. All these heads are all digital made. They can make it digitally, put it on a sprue, have one of their writers do a short story, and say, yep, they exist now. And it would be factual. No matter what it contradicts. Thank you, Windows Security Virus Threat and Protection, for popping up in the middle of this. No matter what it contradicts, they will just say, oh, what came before is now false, and this is the new way. That's the could they do it. Now, should they do it is another question entirely, and I would say they should not do it. I understand that there is a push to have female representation in the most popular, or one of the most popular, if not army that exists. They may not be the most powerful in tournaments, but yes, it's the one that's advertised. It's Warhammer 40,000. It's Space Marines. There you go. But as with the issue with the should, if they do, they would be, like I said, contradicting existing law, and that would turn off an awful lot of people. To my mind, it would probably turn off a lot more people than it would potentially bring in, and that would be a bad financial decision for the company. And companies just want to make money, right? That's what they're here for. They're here to make money. And Games Workshop makes money by producing plastic miniatures for people to play war games with. That's it. That's what they do. And And so I can't see it being a smart decision to put through just for, you know, the could they reasons. Now I don't have any of the rule books available to hand, because I've not played in many years. Last time I was in a Games Workshop store was 2020. However, I do have, if I can spot it on my shelf over here, Codex Blood Angels from 7th or 8th maybe. You can hear pages going. This was, if I can see, Copyright Games Workshop Limited 2017. So this is 2017. And if I flip through to Scout Squads. Traditionally, when new recruits are inducted into the Blood Angels, they first serve in the Chapter Scout Company. It is the job of the Scout Company's sergeants to take these untrained neophytes and transform them into full Blood Angels, ready and worthy to assume their place in the Chapter's other companies. Okay, sounds fine so far. Over the months and years of rigorous training, each scout will refine his combat skills, becoming familiar at first and then deadly with shotgun, bolter and combat blade. As he progresses, the scout will master the precision of the sniper rifle, the destructive lethality of the missile launcher, and the reaping firepower of the heavy bolter. Only when the scout sergeant is convinced of his recruit's readiness will he have the chance to test his skill against the enemies of mankind. Very much male pronouns in there. Also, I understand that in every edition before the latest one of Horus Heresy, when it's talking about the creation of a Space Marine, and if I had a rulebook with me, then I would be able to flick through it. It says that the gene seed is coded to work with the male biology. Essentially, the Y chromosome essentially is what it works with, because it came from first the Emperor, who is male, and then all the Primarchs, who are also all male. And if you try to transfer that out into a female, you would have XY chromosomes trying to interact with XX biology, and something would probably go wrong. So that's kind of like, from the law perspective, you should not do it, because it will fly against everything that's existed for 40 odd years, and yeah, it probably wouldn't be a very good financial decision. However, Games Workshop did a few years ago put up the door kickers, all multiple chapters of various sexuality Space Marines. so I wouldn't put anything past them, to be honest. I really wouldn't. But yeah, in terms of the should, it's not going to do them any favours if they do. Of course, there's going to be the hardcore people who just go, I don't care, and get them anyway. But yeah, should they do it? No, it's not going to financially turn out to be a good decision if they do. Even though they could, just like they've done here, they could produce things that look female, but are just like, oh no, that's male. Yep, that's totally male. That's totally male. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of other law reasons that you can look at. Like, yes, you know, they're. Do you want, in the law, do you want super soldiers to be interbreeding with each other? in order to create new super soldiers and potentially grow the chapters larger than they should be. What would be the biological issues with trying to carry a genetically engineered child to term? In fact, because the Space Marines are all artificially enhanced, would a female Space Marine and a male Space Marine even be able to have a Space Marine child, or would it just be a normal child? Would it be come out as a regular human? Because the zygotes, as far as I'm aware, they don't interact with reproductive material, and eggs in a woman are finite, and they're from puberty at the very least. I think they're from before. I don't know when they kind of start developing. It might be developing at birth. I don't know, but they're there. And there's the story, of course, the famous story everybody knows who has looked into such things, of the Demonculaba. They go, "Oh, you wouldn't want that. That's horrible. That's terrible." Yes, it is, but that's also full-grown Space Marines being turned into Chaos Space Marines rather than a naturally developing fetus. It would go against the idea of the Codex Astartes as well, because the Codex Astartes is supposed to be, no matter how much it gets edited, and yes, even when Gilliman comes back he changes it, it's supposed to be chapters are 1,000 Space Marines, and they are kept at 1,000 because that is a mobile strike force that can still do damage and defeat an enemy, but is not large enough to cause a problem that was like, the Horus Heresy and the Maelstrom incident. Those are huge numbers, and if you have male and female that can potentially breed within a isolated fortress monastery, and just like, hey, yeah, we're just growing our own Space Marines now, and we don't need to send tithes of gene seed to Holy Terror to be checked up on. We don't need to go through the implementation process. That causes Space Marines to potentially grow out of control. Any chapter that's isolated could just go, okay, well, we'll just implant, we'll just get a few women, and there you go. The other argument, of course, in law is that against the should they do it, against that is saying that you've got men and women. Women are more valuable on a species survivability level than men, because women obviously are the ones that carry children, and they give birth, and they nurture them for at least the first few years of life, until the child is able to start doing stuff of its own, and then ordinarily you'd keep looking after it until it's able to actually leave and operate on its own. But who knows, in the nightmare future of the 41st millennium, if a child gets to 10, then it's like, right, you're old enough, you're going in the workshop, you can move, you can manipulate things, it's child labour time. They're most likely our planets to do that. So yeah, and of course one woman can only carry one child at a time. One man can impregnate multiple women at a time. So the more women you have away from the battlefield, then the greater the the greater the speed that the population can, in theory, increase at, which gives you more meat for the grinder. Because keep in mind that it is Warhammer 40k, and there are wars everywhere, and quite frankly, the biggest resource humanity has is fighting men and women, although fighting men are more valuable to throw out on the battlefield if you're struggling to survive. Which, yes, the Imperium kind of is, and also kind of isn't, because it depends upon what day of the week it is. Like with the Great Rift, and it's like, oh no, everything's cut in half. You can't get across from one side to the other, except unless you're an expeditionary fleet, in which case you can without any problems at all. Oh no, the Rubicon Primaris, it's deadly to 80% of the people who go through it, except the people who've got names, and they will always go through it and always come out the other side perfectly fine. Because that's just the way they work. Anyway, that's my stream of consciousness. I've got no idea if it's entertaining to watch or listen to, but yeah, essentially, could Games Workshop produce and put out female Space Marines? Yes. Should they do it? No. There you go. That's my talk. I'm going to go now.